I personally believe that we all have a soul's purpose as unique as our thumbprint. We all have a unique thumbprint that we can identify ourselves across the 8+ billion people, completely unique. I also believe that we all have a unique purpose in life and that we're here to fulfill it.
Welcome to the Be It Till You See It podcast, where we talk about taking messy action, knowing that perfect is boring. I'm Lesley Logan, Pilates instructor and fitness business coach. I've trained thousands of people around the world, and the number one thing I see stopping people from achieving anything is self-doubt. My friends, action brings clarity, and it's the antidote to fear. Each week, my guests will bring bold, executable, intrinsic, and targeted steps that you can use to put yourself first and be it till you see it. It's a practice, not a perfect. Let's get started. Okay, be it babe. We are going to have a little bit of science, a little bit of spirituality, and yes, they go together. And holy moly, am I blown away. I have things that I want to put on repeat. There's things I want to go research. There's meditation I'm going to go do. Like this, I'm fired up. And I have to say, today, before this interview happened, I had call after call, meeting after meeting, demand after demand. I was like, oh, I got to put my podcasting hat on. And I'm going to tell you right now, I'm so glad I did, because my whole perspective of what I'm here to do has changed in like a moment, in an instant. And I believe that that's what's going to happen for you in this podcast. So here is our guest, Kevin Carton. All right, be it babe. This is going to be so fun because I've already been chatting with our guest before I hit record here. And it's just so fun. It's an easy conversation and someone who really cares about who you are and how you operate in this world. And so Kevin Carton, can you tell everyone who you are and what you rock at?
I'd be happy to. Well, first off, thank you for having me on your podcast. I'm thrilled to be here. And I love your show, clearly love your audience because of the focus of your show. So I'm excited to share. So myself, as you shared, I'm Kevin Carton. I'm a transformational life coach. And I like to call myself as well a spiritual teacher, although my technical certification is as a transformational life coach. But I help people in living their dreams. It's really as simple as that, but there's so much more depth than that goes to, because I really like to take the spiritual approach or the soul's approach, the perspective of being a soul in this human experience. And so it's a different approach than like just trying to create something new in your life. But I go into the deeper depths of like, why? Well, why? Why do you want whatever it is that you want? And what is that going to give you? What are you giving to the world for that? And ultimately, I love to focus on our soul's purpose. I personally believe that we all have a soul's purpose as unique as our thumbprint. We all have a unique thumbprint that we can identify ourselves across the 8+ billion people, completely unique. I also believe that we all have a unique purpose in life and that we're here to fulfill it.
I so believe that. I think what a lot of people who listen to the show are kind of figuring out, like, what is my purpose? I think that they can get overwhelmed by the question. It can feel like you have to know an answer and you feel ashamed if you don't know an answer. Simon Sinek's like, it starts with why. And I remember coaching people like, I don't know. I just don't want people to feel pain. And they're being told like your why should make you cry. And it's like, should it though? Is it that emotional? How do we get past it? So I guess I have two questions I want to go with. One, how do you become a transformational life coach? Can anyone just say that they are? And two, what is a soul's purpose? How do we figure that out?
Oh my
so those
God.
are two big questions, I think.
They are. Well, I mean, I've been doing this for a while, so I can answer both of those actually quite briefly. First, how anyone becomes a transformational life coach. There's many different routes, and there are many different perspectives on what you can, or the training you go through to actually call yourself a transformational life coach or a life coach in general. The path I don't recommend, and this is not the path I took, is taking an online certification that costs $250. There are those that are out there and could be helpful in terms of a coaching modality, like you can learn some skills. But I believe if you're calling yourself a transformational life coach, that there is some deeper depth that you've carved out in your own life, your own experience, that you can give to others and share with others, but in a more reliable way, that it's not just happenstance or your own experience, but there's certain principles that you follow, that you share those principles. And if someone works with those principles, then it could work for them too. Because at heart, I'm actually a scientist. That's like the beginning of my story. I first chose my career path at first was to get my doctorate in pharmacy. Long story short, I did not end up continuing to get my doctorate because 3.5 years in or so, I started to work in the industry as an intern, and I hated it. I felt like my soul was being crushed because honestly, I really went into that career path because I want to help people. And when I saw that what we were doing really wasn't really helping, it was more of just masking symptoms, not really treating the underlying cause. I felt like there was no purpose for me there anymore. So it was a very big, I call it my quarter life crisis, but that ultimately led me to needing help myself. So it was many different ways this came about that I won't get into, different like synchronicities happening in my life. But I stumbled upon a mentor who has been my mentor since. So for over 10 years now, I've been working with this woman, and she's a transformational life coach. Her name is Mary Morrissey, but I sought her help because I was in such a deep, dark place in my life, like dipping in and out of depression, feeling so lost that I needed guidance. I needed support. So from that journey, and it was within like 1 year from working with her, investing in coaching with her, that I started to uncover what really was here for me and my purpose and what I really wanted to do to help people, like truly. And for how much her work helped me, I felt so inspired that I wanted to do the same. So a kind of a story of turning your mess into your message, right? So that's what guided me toward this path of being a transformational life coach. And I'm also really grateful and thrilled that my mentor actually runs a whole institute that I believe is actually like one of the world's best in terms of training life coaches.
Yeah. I love that you brought that up about what you don't recommend people do as a path. And also you went into like how long you went through, and you're obviously still working with her. And then also to then train, because my industry is also not really regulated. And I don't think the life coaching industry is also like, there's not like a third party. Yeah, exactly. And I do think that there are reasons why some statewide or tests should be done, because I just think that anyone can call themselves some of these things. And if they're really passionate, that they can hoodwink people. And so I actually don't bring on a ton of life coaches onto this podcast because I want to make sure that there's a way that I can vet them and research them, and I can look into what they say they're trained in. And I saw yours and I was like, oh, this is legitimate. And this person actually practices what they preach. So it's the same thing when people are like, oh, I want a Pilates instructor, we're over here. I'm like, here's the deal. There's not really like a one directory you can go to, and anyone can actually call themselves a Pilates instructor. They don't even have to take a course. They can watch it on Instagram. They can watch my YouTube videos. It's all there. They can buy the equipment. They can insure the studio. They can insure a studio and never, ever have to show a certification of any kind. So it's really important that people know that there is valid ways. And I really appreciate you sharing that. Okay. So I also resonate because I went into college for like a reason, and I was like, I'm going to do this thing. And I remember sitting on an airplane very vividly. And I remember going, I don't even see myself doing that anymore. And I felt like, oh my God, I'm in college. I'm paying all this money. I can't just also quit. So what am I going to do? What is my thing that I'm going to do? And so it's really overwhelming when you're in your early 20s and you have all this pressure because it costs so much to start to even shift. So I think it's really incredible that you had the crisis and you found the shift. So is that how you found your soul's purpose? Is like what? And then can we all find ours?
Absolutely. Yeah. So it's a great bridge into that second question to answer that. As I mentioned, I believe it's also can be a brief answer, pretty straightforward, that our soul's purpose is really what our heart calls for the most. That's what I believe our purpose is. Because, purpose has this definition or this paradigm around it that it has to be something that involves contributing to the world or contributing in some way that's like a career, a work, a job, whatever it is. Like we're doing something. I personally believe our purpose here is actually to live the most alive life that we possibly can. And as you know, as I mentioned just before, I'm a scientist. I take the scientific perspective. And this I know is going to go really wide out for people, but I really believe it's helpful. That if you look back into like the creation of this whole universe, our entire life and existence and all that we know, the scientific perspective is that it was the Big Bang, right? Even that, in the spiritual perspective, pretty much any major religion speaks about there was this like moment that creation just began, right? From like one point, like one God, right? Is a common denominator of that, a common thought. But it's the same thing with the scientific perspective. It was one infinitesimally small point of matter that scientists have discovered that was the beginning of our universe. Sounds like one energy, one life, one source, one something, right? And boom, it blew apart. And then ever since then, for 13 plus billion years, it's becoming more and more complex and evolving to greater and greater experiences of itself that we call life. We are part of life. We're alive. We have breath. We didn't do anything to deserve the breath in our lungs or the heartbeat in our chest. It's a gift that we're given. And so I personally believe that our purpose here, for any different way you can cut it up, is that we're here to become more alive, more aware, more happy, more joyful, more loving, and then fill in the blank. And it just happens to be sometimes that our work involves that.
I like that you said that we often think that the purpose is I have to do things for others, but
Mm.
you mentioned it's more important that like we are living our lives. And I think that that's true. I think that the people that we're attracted to, there's this magnet around them because they're living their life. And we're like looking at that, we're like, it's like sparkly, shiny. It looks like the grass looks greener over there. And it might be because they're actually just living their life. And a lot of us get so consumed with, well, if I do X for me, what are other people going to think?
Yep.
And
Exactly.
I think is that like the sole purpose, like kryptonite is like thinking what other people are going to think about the thing we're doing for ourselves to live.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, definitely. There's a lot of paradigms that have to be shifted in our current society and current culture of humanity, that it's too much focused on like, oh, what are other people going to think, that we shut down our own aliveness. And ultimately, I don't believe that that's the purpose of life itself anyway. And so it's flawed in some way. I don't think it's entirely negative to have some idea and concern of what other people are going to think, because we are all connected. There is, again, I believe, this one life source energy. You can call it different labels and names, but it's within everyone too. So we want to care about others as well, but not too much. There's a fine line. There's a middle path of that.
Yeah, I think you're right, because a narcissist would not think about anyone ever. So that's one extreme. And then someone else would be like trying to people please on the other extreme. And that's never going to work. And so there is a place in the middle where it's like a temp check of, is what I'm doing going to be good in this world? Yes. And is it my purpose? Is it from me, or am I doing this for others?
Exactly. Spot on. Yeah. And that's why I started with that. Like, what is purpose to me? It's us, our own individual selves becoming more alive. But again, it does connect with others. We don't want to like step on others in pursuing our purpose, because then what's the point?
Right. Because we want to me, I'm like, how do I bring people in? How do I bring them along? How do we include all of them? And none of it's easy. And I think that that's the hard part, right?
Yes.
Doing the work to transform your life isn't easy. It's not a checkbox.
Not at all.
Okay, so you bring science into spirituality. I found that very fascinating, because I feel like there's several different types of spirituality, and that they're so woo. We're on a different universe, and I can't really go there. I'm a one woo kind of girl. So I like my crystals, I like my meditation. I definitely use some Palo Santo, but like, we're not we gotta stay on this planet too. How did you combine the two? Because I feel like, I think it's cool that they live together. I just didn't realize that there was a Venn diagram where they overlapped.
Yes. Oh, very much so. In fact, honestly, some of the points and teaching principles I share, it's often like one and the same, that the science and the spirituality, they say the exact same thing. It's just for how it's been in our society and humanity for so long, it's just been so separate. But now it really sparked my interest when I started to study quantum physics, because spiritual teachers for ages, millennia, would teach about, if you believe, I mean, it's literally about your podcast, be it until you see it, right? Another way of saying it, if you believe it, then you can achieve it. In essence, you have it in your mind. It's possible in life. And there's a way in which you can create that. The scientific perspective of that now. In quantum physics, have you ever heard of or seen the double slit experiment?
No, I don't think so, but I'm excited to learn.
I'd highly recommend checking it out. And there's a great YouTube video that describes it in very simple terms, because it's quite in-depth. I haven't even understood it to the degree of the quantum physicists and how they studied it, because it's still mind-boggling. But there's a great YouTube video by Dr. Quantum on YouTube, and literally just type in Dr. Quantum double slit experiment. You'll find it's a 5-minute video.
Okay.
Easy to understand, really, really great. But the basic idea of it is that the scientists, they believed that, for the longest time, the perspective on our universe is that it's material, meaning that it's energy that we can interact with, we can measure. It's very solid. Like literally the computer I'm using to record this, or my desk, like it's very solid. We can touch it, right? So all of these different things are just made up of electrons, protons, and neutrons, all put together in just different formations. That's the periodic table as we know it. It's literally every element that we know that makes up the visible universe. However, if you break it up enough and take electrons or photons, which is the tiny, tiny bit, it's the negative charge in an atom of any atom in the world or in the universe, take that electron. If you fire it into these like slits, in essence, like these two slits in this like metal sheet, then it creates like a pattern on the back wall, like where those electrons like went through those slits. So that's the basic idea, that they looked at that, because when you have solid pieces of matter and you shoot them through those two slits, it creates that reflection on the back of two slits of bands, right? Because solid matter went through it.
Yeah.
But if it's a wave of potential or a wave of energy, let's say that those double slits were in water. If there was just a wave, like a ripple effect of water that goes through those two slits, it creates a very different result on the measuring wall.
Yeah.
Because the waves go through the slits, but then there's then two waves that come out of it and they interact with each other and they cause what's called an interference pattern. So I know I'm getting quite detailed, but it's important.
It's okay.
So the craziest thing happened though, that what they thought would happen with electrons is that they would show up as the physical matter, that it was like the two bands, the two slits, right?
Yeah.
It did not. It showed up as an interference pattern, meaning that the electron, which we have thought of for so long as just so material, so real, it's actually just potential in energy, meaning that literally everything that makes up the universe of electrons, also protons, neutrons, they are actually going in and out of states of existence. So the whole point being why I'm sharing this, and this is what really sparked for me. This is way back 2014 when I actually first found this video and learned about the double slit experiment and the science behind this. It said, because the additional, one final additional piece that they added to this experiment was that the scientists took a measuring device to see which slit or how those electrons went through those double slits to make the interference pattern. Because they're like, what's going on? We think these things are solid pieces of matter. And when they put the measuring device there, the electrons went back to becoming actual matter. So it was inescapable, the conclusion, which was that the act of observing, in essence, being consciously aware, focusing on whatever it is that you're focusing on, makes it real. And if you're not focusing on it, in other words, you're not measuring that electron, it behaves like potential, like it's not solid.
Wait, oh my God. That's
it's
so
actually
crazy.
True.
That's so, that is so crazy. Cause it's like, we always hear what you can track is what you would attract. What you measure is what grows.
Yes.
That's insane.
This is why.
That's really crazy. That is the woo with the science, like that all.
Exactly. And let me share one final thing, because I know I'm like very well self-aware, and I'm like, I shared a lot more like technical terms and all, but
we're going to transcribe this whole thing and let people Google. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, please. That video is so helpful, because I even noticed I find some difficulty in explaining it as clearly as possible. But here's my favorite quote from Einstein. Albert Einstein even said this. This is, I think, a couple of decades before this double slit experiment actually came out. So this was just a theory at the time, but now it's proven. He was just walking with a friend one night, and he's famous for saying, I wonder if we're not looking at the moon right now, if we're facing away from it, is the moon actually there right now? Is it actually in existence? It's like the classic philosophical saying, or the question, like, if a tree falls in the woods and no one's around to hear it, does it actually make a sound? And to this point, this double slit experiment is basically proving that actually, no, it's not there until you view it. Your consciousness is focused on it. And I'll end this off by saying, just to make it even more tangible and actionable to someone listening, the reason I bring this up is so powerful as of an example is that we could use that in an everyday basis with our life, with a dream, a vision, what we would love to create, even if we have no idea how it's going to happen, or there's no circumstance around us that shows evidence as it's possible. It is possible because you can see it in your mind. It's the ability to focus, to concentrate, to dream up anything that you would love. And honestly, I think that's exactly what you mean in this whole podcast, this topic of, or the whole title and the theme of this podcast is Be It Till You See It.
Yeah. Okay. I love this because I actually just heard of someone doing a manifestation where they went into the future and they saw what they wanted to happen and they believed that it happened. And then they came back to the past and then all these different things were happening that would make them doubt what they saw in the future. But they stuck with, no, we believe that, we saw that, it's going to come to an existence, and it happened, right? Yes. Which feels a little magical. But also I believe that because there are times when I've been so clear on what I want that it actually happens. And so where I think people get stuck is they don't know what they want.
Agreed. Yes.
Like they can't actually be specific about what it is that they want. And I find when I goal set 10 years ago, 15 years ago, I could be very specific about what I wanted. And now as I get older and I've achieved a lot of things and different stuff, sometimes it's hard to know what you want and then believe that, oh, well, I want that. But is that exactly what I want? Like we start to doubt ourselves. So like, how do you help people who have no idea what to want?
That's a great question. And I appreciate your just transparency and your own experience now, because it's not a linear process. If you've achieved certain dreams and goals in your life already, doesn't mean that there's not going to be some challenge in discovering or achieving the next, right?
Mm-hmm.
But my go-to principle or tool for that in discovery is to get curious. The reason why I say that is because I personally believe that our true heart's desire, our true dream, our true purpose, whatever you want to call it, it is given to us by life itself, by this power you can call God, source, spirit, the universe, this energy, this life force, whatever you want to call it. We're alive. And so I believe we're given visions, given dreams. In fact, another great teacher and life coach, Les Brown, if you ever heard of him, he often says this in his speeches, that we're given dreams and it's up to us to accept. And actually, first off, actually become aware of what those dreams are that are given to us, but then to actually accept and be bold and courageous to go for it. So the first tool I offer usually is just curiosity, because it's more of a listening in rather than trying to figure out what is your purpose. So that it's more of a conversation, a dialogue, an exploration, rather than trying to make it happen or write it out and decide, because then it gets too intellectual. It's not connected to your heart.
Yeah.
And that's really where the true desires come from. It's not in the mind, it's in the body, it's in the heart.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, I love that. I love what you quoted last line, because have you read the book Big Magic?
No, I haven't, but I'm familiar with it.
A great book. And it's, I think, really great for the creatives who listen, because I coach a lot of people on their business and they're like, okay, I started to get this going and now I'm ready to do this. And I'm like, so here's the thing. You can do whatever you want, but I'm going to tell you what I know is that if you test what is making you happy in your livelihood right now before it's ready, you will have to make decisions that they're going to be compressed or pressured because you need to make the money before it's ready, right? And so the Big Magic book with Elizabeth Gilbert, the idea is she actually did not quit teaching even when she sold Eat, Pray, Love. When she sold the movie, she still was teaching in a college. She did not quit teaching that consistent income until she knew that her creativity on its own could fund the life that she had without being pressures. Because a lot of times people go, okay, I'm going to make my art be my paycheck. But then you start to change the art so that it's what sells versus what's in your heart.
Exactly.
Right. And so when you are talking about being curious and figuring out what that is, it's kind of like there's a patience to it, and we can't put that pressure on it too soon before it's ready. But she also talks about in that book is that ideas want to be born and they come to you.
Exactly.
And if you don't act on them, they will go to someone else. And that's why two people across the planet can come up with the same idea at the same time and work on it. And one person takes their time and quits. And then it's like, I had that idea. Yeah. But it left.
Happens all the time. Exactly.
Yeah. It wanted to be born. Okay, so you're just full of so much knowledge. And something that really attracted me when I was looking at what you talk about a lot, you have a couple things that I'm wondering if you have time, which one you want to talk about more. The power of a clear vision or the 4 levels of consciousness. Which one is on your heart to share?
Ooh, I know,
both
are equally powerful, right?
Well, we can go.
Actually,
hints on how quick you are.
Yeah, no, let's get to both actually. Because the first is very straightforward, very easy to just piggyback off of everything we've already talked about. A vision, in my definition of it and working with it with my clients, is a vision statement that's a written out version of the life you'd love to live that is detailed, specific, clear with emotion, and just big, what you would really love, not limited by current circumstance. And when you write it out in that way, and I mean present tense, not I will or I'm going to, I am, and fill in the blank. I'm so grateful, I'm so happy, I'm so proud, and I have this business, I've written this book. Because once we get clear and we actually write it out, it becomes more of a declaration then for us to become. It's a great tool to actually be it until you see it, because as we write out our dreams, we then can come back to it again and again. Because how often, life goes on and we have responsibilities and other things going on in life that take our attention away. And then we forget about the big dream. And it's a month later. And it's like, wait a minute, I was really on fire for that for a few days or a week. What happened to it? The tool of the vision statement is really powerful to just to recheck in. So that's my brief blurb about it. And it's incredible.
I love that. And I agree on the I am statements. I think that they're extremely powerful. And I think the more we say them out loud and hear ourselves say them out loud, that's really powerful too. And I think you have to say it several times because it changes the more you say it. That's really great. I also like your interpretation of like how to write down your vision statement. I think that that's really fun. That's going to be a homework assignment for me.
Yeah, try it out. Fun.
Okay, the other one was the 4 levels of consciousness. What
Yeah.
are those?
So 4 levels. First is that it's all in the perspective of how is life showing up for me, or how am I experiencing life? So the first and lowest level of consciousness, which is victimhood, is life is happening to me.
Mhm.
I'm at effect and I blame others. I blame the economy. I blame the government. I blame my ex. I blame my parents. I blame all except for myself. It's like life is
Mhm.
happening to me and I'm not the problem. Everything else is. And it's such a low state of consciousness because we're not actually connected with the truth that we have the power within to determine what meaning we take on for our life, or
Yeah.
what circumstance mean to us.
Yeah.
That's well studied in psychology. That's not just like some fun thing to say. It's actually well researched, supported in many peer reviewed journals that our perception creates the meaning that we experience in life. It's not the
Yeah.
actual event.
Yeah.
One great quick book to dive deeper into that topic, Man's Search for Meaning by Viktor Frankl.
Oh.
Incredibly powerful, so moving. And his story, is just for anyone who has not read it or heard of it. He was a refugee from Nazi Germany. He was in the concentration camps. He survived. But there was one moment he had, which basically created the rest of his work for the rest of his life. One moment where basically he was in such terrible conditions that the one last thing he had, which was like a gold wedding band, which the Nazis just didn't take away at that time until like they found it months later. They finally demanded that from him. And his first instinct was like to hate them, to get angry. But he found this place within himself, which was a pause between the actual circumstance and then his response and his choice of how he was going to place meaning on that exact circumstance. Probably the most difficult thing that anyone can face, right? And that place he found within himself created his whole work, which is called logos therapy. And so
Mm.
it's, again, well studied that, again, it's our own choice. So it's a choice to stay in victimhood, which ultimately will just diminish our life over time, which no
Yeah.
one wants, obviously, deep down. So that's the first level of consciousness we want to move out of. To bridge to the second level of consciousness, it's simple. We take responsibility for how we respond, for our own thoughts, our own actions, our own words. And once you take responsibility, you increase your consciousness to the awareness, or that phase of awareness called that life is happening by me. That now you're not just
Mm.
sitting on the sidelines, you're engaged. You recognize that your thoughts, your actions have meaning and create differences in the world. And so you start to create what you want. However, that is still in a degree limited because we're still only focused on our own personal self. And it comes back to the point we mentioned earlier that we're living in this world with 8+ billion other humans and many, many other life forms on this planet. So it's not just for one of us, it's really for all. What we're doing is in benefit for all as well. And that moves us up to the third level of consciousness, which is life is happening through me. It's not by me
Ooh.
anymore, but now life is happening through me, meaning I have a part to play in this grand play called life because I'm alive. And so I don't have just a separateness between me and the other person, or me and that flower, or me and the sun. It's all one life happening. And it's
Mhm.
this, again, a symphony. And so as we
Mhm.
step into that kind of flow, it literally becomes like a flow, like a river. And so things start to work out more easily when we recognize that we're connected with this source of energy, life, power that we can tap into. And
Yeah.
then magic starts to happen because the move from the by me phase to the through me phase of life is we let go of control, which is a difficult one
Yeah.
because it seems like it's
I'm
opposite.
a
But
teacher who studies the art of control. That's what Pilates is. It actually was called
really
contrology. Yes, it's called the art of control. It's a study of control, right? And so
interesting.
every Pilates instructor, or often people who are like attracted to Pilates, is like this perfectionist, like control, like type
Yep.
A person. And the hilariousness is that the more I studied the way that Joe Pilates intended it, was about curiosity and just figuring out like, what can I do? What is possible? So it's really funny because I came into it like, oh, I got to get perfect at it. And once I'm perfect at it, I got it. And then the more I did it, the more I realized, oh, actually every day is a different day in my body. And yes, I need to control my body, but I need to let go of what the controlling the scenario that's happening today, because my body is different today
Exactly.
than tomorrow. Right.
Yeah. Yeah,
Oh,
my word
fun.
shift, which it's spot on. I'm thrilled you gave that example because that's so profound and probably helpful for someone listening who's into Pilates, right? Because it seems like a lot about control. But I think basically what I picked up from your words were is that yes, it's about controlling like your body, but it's more about the responsibility about your body of like, yes, I'm taking responsibility of my actions in that, but it's letting go of control of like, yeah, what's going on in the day. Maybe my body feels different than from yesterday to today. So that's where you let go of control, but the responsibility piece is there as well. That's how I see it.
I love this. This is great. I feel like we can do Pilates and consciousness workshops.
Nice. That'd be awesome.
Amazing. Okay. And so is there one more level? Like after
there's one more.
Okay.
Yeah, this one's a fun one because it's more of experiences that you can have. I personally don't make this as like a goal or an aspiration to live in this phase of awareness. I set my goal to live in the third phase of awareness, the through me phase. But the fourth and final phase of awareness is as me, where life is now happening as me, where there's actually no separation between me and this entirety of the universe. This is the mystic experience that most people speak about, like mystics, gurus, sages, messiahs, that there's this oneness and there's this deep knowing. And I like to say it's an experience because most people don't want to set that as like a life goal. Yeah. That's more of like those who want to like become a monk and renounce all worldly desires. And funny enough, for 2 weeks of my life, I actually had that desire, but I let it go pretty quickly.
But there are places in Asia where you can go be a monk for like 3 weeks or 4 weeks or whatever.
I did not know that.
I know people, yes. So I know people who like once a year spend a month as a monk. And I think that that's incredible. I couldn't do it. I think it would depend on the type of, well, first of all, I'm a female and that's often not an option, but a lot of monks only eat once a day, right? It's a whole thing. So there is a way to experience it without having to do it forever.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah. Just to qualify what it is, even the as me experience, right? Again, it's that oneness. But as I mentioned, I like to call these portals that we go through in terms of awareness, like from, just to recap, victimhood to that by me phase is we take responsibility. That's the portal we go through. Then from the by me phase to the through me phase, we let go of control. And then this final phase that we go through, the portal we go through is completely dissolving separateness. And that's why it's more of an experience to have, not really like for most of us, it could be some that they would want to attain that fully and completely in their life and live that. But most people have those experiences like in deep meditation, in connection with nature, potentially even in certain exercises, like where you're really in touch with your body. There's this oneness, not only with yourself, but with all life. But the funny thing is the most common experience of the ASME phase is through orgasm between two human beings.
Really?
Yeah.
So people can experience it. Yeah. They can experience it now.
Yeah. 100%. Yeah. And it's actually in some ways common, right? We just don't often think of it as this spiritual experience because at least like sex and that whole topic has just gotten quite muddied in a way, like just not in as pure, and I'm putting in air quotes because not anything of like, what I might say is like pure or anything, but who's to have that definition? But it is the most common experience in the ASME phase.
Cool. So I guess my only question on this is it possible to like get to the by me, maybe into the through me, and then all of a sudden you're back at the to me? Because I feel like there can be days where you're just like, oh my God. And then you're reacting and then you're blaming. And then you're like, who the hell is this person? I don't know this person. And then you have to like go back. And so maybe the quicker you get to getting back to the by me and through me is the key.
That's the goal. Yeah. It's not about perfection because we're human. So we're flawed. We're not going to be perfect. And there's a law of the universe called the law of rhythm. We all work with it and know it and experience it every single day with the night and the day. Like the light and the darkness that we experience. It's the round of our breath, the inhale, the exhale. There's that rhythm, the ebb and the flow of the tides of the ocean, right? It's within all things. The same thing with our consciousness. It's, I believe, naive to think that we're going to stay in one phase of awareness constantly for the rest of our life.
Right.
Almost impossible. I'm not saying it's impossible because I believe anything's possible, but more likely we're just going to go through rhythms and times where we're more connected, more aware, and then we fall asleep, just like we need rest. In a given day, like we fall asleep. So we need that in consciousness as well.
Oh, Kevin, I could talk to you all day. This is so fascinating. I didn't even know that you could have science and spirituality in the same. Like, I really am blown away and excited. We're going to take a brief break and then find out how people can find you, follow you, work with you. All right, Kevin, where do you hang out? Where can people stalk you in the best way?
Sure. The two places I hang out the most, my website is kevincarton.com. There's a kind of a hub for like different resources I have, as well as the main place I hang out, my podcast with my brother. I'm very blessed to say I've been running this podcast with my brother for 5.5 years. He's my co-host and my closest friend. He's my older brother. He's 1.5 years older than me. We created it. It's called Science and Spirituality, which you can find anywhere.
Oh, I'm going to download it now. This is going to be exciting. Going to be in my ears more. You have an amazing gift for our peeps, and you have some beit action items for us. So can you give us all the good stuff?
Yeah, I'd be happy to. And thank you for the ability to share this with your audience too. So I have a meditation called the Metacognition meditation. Metacognition is just a technical psychological term or psychology term for this tool of noticing what you're noticing. It's the most profound tool, spiritual tool I've ever come across to help you connect with who you really are as a spiritual being, having this human experience. And to connect it with our conversation, I really believe it's a great tool to help yourself listen in and get curious for what your purpose is, what your true desires are when you actually get in touch with who you really are. So it's a 23-minute guided meditation. It might sound a bit long for those who may not be a regular meditator, but it's a guided meditation. So I have beautiful music behind there and I guide you through every step of the way. And it's really powerful. So it's completely free. And obviously there's a link in the show notes that Lesley and her team puts there.
Oh yeah, it's going to be there. And also 23 minutes is less than 2% of your day, everyone. Just less than 2%. And it's really important to move your body, yes, but also it's important to be with your body. And some days we can't move. And so sitting still and listening to this, and even if you don't sit still, I think that probably that's something to notice.
Definitely.
Oh, I can't wait. I'm excited. Brad's going to be excited too. Let's see him not tap his foot for 23 minutes. We'll see if that goes. Okay, beit action items, bold, executable, intrinsic, or targeted steps people can take to be it till they see it. What do you have for us?
Yes. So my main tool I use, which actually is a kind of a piggyback off of this whole conversation too. Clearly, as you could tell, I often come back to just the source of all life as an inspirational jumping off point or the foundation. So I personally use gratitude as a practice for being it until I see it in a couple of different levels. But the first and foremost, pretty obvious level is just gratitude for what's going on in life right now, to focus on the positive, the good things you have in your life right now, to build this solid foundation of loving or enjoying your aspects of your life to a great degree so you can attract more of that. And then the second level of gratitude to connect to, which I believe comes from that connection with our higher power, is a gratitude for being alive today and the opportunity that we have to even dream of what we would love to be in the future. And then once we have that clarity and the gratitude for even just the possibility, then the third level of gratitude of actually being grateful for what we say we want or who we say we want to be now, as if it's already ours. And speaking of science, I always love the science to this. Scientific studies prove now that if we just imagine vividly enough something we would love to experience or who we would love to be, our brain's neurons light up in the exact same way as if we were actually experiencing said thing. This is actually, you look this up, pro golfers, and it's becoming more popular in pro football. But golfing, it's been around for decades as a very strong practice, but now just supported by a lot of scientific research. So I recommend that as a practice because it works with our physiology very well. And it stimulates what now is called neuroplasticity.
Yeah.
A lot of people might know that.
Yeah.
So gratitude is the key to work with there.
Who knew? I mean, that is so cool. One of my favorite things to remember about gratitude is gratitude and judgment can't live in the same space. And so as a practice, whenever I'm feeling judgmental of myself or an experience or whatever, I like to take a moment and I'm like, okay, hold on. I'm grateful for this right now. And also you can feel that judgment disappear. And sometimes it's one of the easiest ways to take another look at what is going on so that I'm not a victim and the thing. So what a cool tool. We've had over 500 episodes, and I'm not sure that gratitude was used in that way or at all in a beit action item. So
wow.
Kevin, thank you for blowing our minds. I think you're so
welcome.
awesome.
Thank you.
You're so wonderful. This is a saver for sure. There's so many different little avenues I want to dig into more. So I can't wait to hear what our listeners' takeaways were. So please, you guys, tag Kevin, tag the Beit Pod. Share this with a friend who needs it. Share it with a friend who you feel is kind of sticking in that victimhood thing. It's hard. They might not listen to all of your suggestions. So maybe they can listen to Kevin, tell them, and they could be blown away as much as I am. And you know what to do. Until next time, be it till you see it.
That's all I got for this episode of the Be It Till You See It podcast.
One thing that would help both myself and future listeners is for you to rate the show and leave a review. And follow or subscribe for free wherever you listen to your podcast. Also, make sure to introduce yourself over at the Beit Pod on Instagram. I would love to know more about you. Share this episode with whoever you think needs to hear it. Help us and others be it till you see it. Have an awesome day. Be It Till You See It is a production of the Bloom Podcast Network. If you want to leave us a message or a question that we might read on another episode, you can text us at +1 310 905 5534 or send a DM on Instagram at beitpod.
It's written, filmed, and recorded by your host, Lesley Logan, and me, Brad Crowell.
It is transcribed, produced, and edited by the Epic team at Diseño.co.
Our theme music is by Ali at Apex Production Music, and our branding by designer and artist Gianfranco Cioffi.
Special thanks to Melissa Solomon for creating our visuals.
Also to Angelina Herrico for adding all of our content to our website. And finally, to Meredith Root for keeping us all on point and on time.